An extra engineer to your fold there, Mr. Thompson. But welcome. If you, Mr. Barrick, if you would like to convene our meeting, we'll get started. All right.
We are called to order.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. Roll call then. Dr. Ashraf El Sayed, Robert Campbell,
Here.
Rob Barrick,
Here.
Alton Heathcote,
I'm right here.
Jason Carter,
Here.
and James Collins. All right, we have quorum, Chair. I think we are ready then for our NCWS zone meeting update. You should have the Mr. Carter's and a talking point also from Mr. Campbell. They, of course, attended our recent NCWS zone meeting. And they had a few items that they would like to just offer for general discussion, give an update, but then also cover those that are listed there before you. So I will defer to them, and I don't know about Mr. Carter or Mr. Campbell who pulled the short straw on that one.
Over the minutes.
So you can see in front of you results of the election, various winners, and then schedule for future zone meetings is there in front of you. Next year it'll be in Asheville, North Carolina, so close, especially for those of us in East Tennessee. So I guess the big things, Jimmy Chow out of South Carolina last year, I believe, came up with the idea to recognize graduating seniors who passed the FE exam. And so he, their board created these tassels, cords, whatever you want to call them, to put on their caps so that they could wear those at graduation. NCES. Oh, was it?
It's a cord that goes.
Oh, yeah. You're right. So NCES loved the idea. They have made a bunch of those themselves and are providing those to universities free of cost. They'll ship them to them and everything. They reached out, I think, to every university in the country with a recognized program with limited feedback, I think, probably because they did it fairly late in the semester and schools were focused on wrapping everything up rather than that sort of thing. So Robert and I reached out to Tennessee Tech, who actually got the cords in time for graduation. I think we saw some pictures. Very nice gesture. The reason I bring this up is I think we as a board should use our connections to the other universities and just make them aware that NCES will provide these free of charge. All you have to do is respond to the email that NCES will send to them. So any of you that, I'd encourage us to do that.
I would volunteer to reach out to a few of them to make that offer. I think that's a terrific gesture, and I really think it's a nice recognition. They should be rewarded and recognized for doing that.
And I think schools have done this on different things. I mean, for academic achievement, like there's some things that I understand that people get for high academic achievement. I never understood what those were, but some people got them. But I also didn't think.
You mean you weren't a candidate?
Well, I thought the grade point average only went up to 302, so I kind of got a little hung there. But anyway, the feedback we got from Tennessee Tech, and again, it was short fuse, so we were able to. Jason knew a couple people, and I did as well. And the graduates seemed to be very excited about them, and they all kind of got together and had pictures taken. And that's a pretty. You don't think about it; it's kind of simple. But those things are they motivate too. Those cords and being able to stand out from somebody and differentiate yourself have been a big deal. So
I do know folks at Union, Martin, TSU, and Lipscomb, and you've already contacted Tennessee Tech. So I would volunteer to reach out to those individuals and make sure that they know about this and try to encourage them to participate. Do you have a contact at NCWS?
There's an email like info something. I'd have to go back.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I'll try to do it.
I'll get that to them.
Memphis.
And I like that personal touch too with our board members reaching out to their regions. I think that's special and make that connection, but also the awareness too with the chords. And then, I mean, I was just thrilled that they're actually providing that. That was going to be the tricky part, was to figure out how to fund that if that was coming straight from the boards.
Well, they've got $60 million in a bank account,
Yeah.
for goodness sakes, which we'll discuss at the conference.
Well, that's good. Thank you for that update and that awareness. So, by all means, and you wouldn't need any authorization that you're not speaking. You're just reaching out to these folks and letting them know that this is available to them. So, feel free to do that.
Outside of the ones that we've talked about contacting, there's still UTK, UTC, and Christian Brothers, and Vandy. Oh, that's right. I can do Vandy too.
I can do.
Anybody going to take my alma mater, MTSU? I mean, just going to leave us out in the cold? What's happening?
As a Tennessee Tech graduate, I cannot technically cannot reach out to. There's a statute of limitations.
I understand.
Out to MTSU, so I have to have somebody else do that. That's got a peace agreement with
an accords.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one of our local members, somebody from the Middle Tennessee area. Mr. Barrick, would you be willing?
I graduated so low at the bottom of my class that I could probably reach out anywhere you want.
There is an advantage, isn't there, in that regard? All right. Well, that sounds good. And I'll look at our list too, our distribution list, because that letter for the grants will go out at the end of this month. And so that'll be a good opportunity. I'll look at that list, and then from what we've discussed today, if there's anyone that's sort of straggler, we'll get them taken care of. All right, good deal. Or any other discussion on the FE chords and state recognition? All right, ceiling 3D plans, I believe, is on there.
So there were a few states that are starting to get into that. I think Florida mentioned that they're starting to develop some guidance on how that might work. Robert has contacted Jennifer Lloyd, who's over the design division at TDOT, and it's at least on their radar, but probably coming quicker than maybe even TDOT realizes with the P3s and all that. So steps we need to take at this point.
Yeah, so actually Florida has passed that's in their sealing law now, so they can seal a 3D model. They've got a law or a rule that they do that. And why this is important, and I know it may sound like it's futuristic, but remember, Florida has got a lot of the same legislation on a roadway building standpoint that Tennessee has passed. They do a lot of public-private partnerships. They have larger corporations and groups that come in and manage roadways and do different things, and they saw a need to have these models be able to be stamped and certified rather than the plans. And so even though it's not quite on TDOT's radar yet, they've got a lot of other things that they're dealing with and trying to get going. At some point, those same companies are coming to Tennessee to be doing work. And I think we would, as a board, would be smart, because it will take a couple years to kind of go through this process. I mean, even if we had the rule written right now, we know that rulemaking and all that process takes time, and then a legislative change potentially that might have to happen along with this would also, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but I think that's one of the reasons we as an engineering committee need to be meeting and talking about it, and maybe assigning some different parts to each other, because it's on its way, and not to try to get too historical, but the FHWA started a process probably 10 years ago called Everyday Counts, and it started out in Utah, I believe, and they were starting to talk then about the FHWA about stamping the models and having a 3D model and going straight from your computer to the piece of equipment, to bidding, to the equipment in the field, because it saved weeks, months, whatever, off of that process. And I know TDOT's trying to see how they can shave time off from inception to delivery. So that doesn't take a real smart person to see that that's something that's probably going to be in the mix at some point in time. And I just don't want us as a board to be caught, and Jason as well, we talked about a little bit at the meeting, caught flat-footed, and then all of a sudden, you know, hey, we need to start stamping 3D models, and we understand nothing about it. We have no concept of how that works. You know, then we're either holding them up or we're providing a substandard way to do that, which doesn't help protect the safety of the people out there. So anyway, I just think it's something, Mr. Chairman and the other members, we need to probably put in action somehow. And again, I don't know what that specific process is, but it's coming. And it may be here in 3 or 4 years, but it's still, that's not too, in our world, that's not too far out either. So hope not. I hope not. But then I know, Rob, you've seen it more from a mechanical with Revit models and stuff, which is where the architects kind of are. And there's more and more pressure to just give us the model, give us the model, give us the model. And, you know, we want that. We don't want anything. We just, with the model, we all know the model's got stuff in it. You know, it's got trash drawings and junk stuff and things that make
We
that
haven't
model.
had the issue. Models they were. That'll come.
It'll come. It'll
Yeah.
come.
Do we know the mechanism of doing that? I know we have agencies now that through which you can electronically stamp plans for TDOT, for example, and physically stamp.
But sorry to interrupt, but that is a physical stamp of
Yeah.
a paper. I mean, basically, then that paper set governs, or that I'm talking about a full model that actually doesn't go straight to any kind of paper, and it's really has been difficult until recently, and the technology's there with blockchain, because now if I give you my model, let me make sure I say that right. If I give you my model, if I don't have it locked down to where that now you can change whatever you want to in that model. Okay. So I need to have something in there that says, here's what I did. Any changes, we can see what you did. So if you go out there on this construction site, let's say, and you go, you know what, I know they put in, it needed to be a beam of a certain size, but we just don't think we need that.
Yeah, I was asking if do we know anything
Oh, I'm
about the
sorry.
mechanism of doing that? Because I know Oregon, for example, has already adopted that. California was talking about it, but do we know how?
I don't
how that,
know.
okay.
That's where I'm saying we probably
Yeah.
need to start thinking about that, because I don't know enough. I know enough about it maybe to ring the bell, but not enough about it to get going.
It sounds like TDOT is sort of leading the charge on that, probably because they have to.
But I don't think TDOT's not yet.
Okay.
But when you start to see other states that are kind of doing some of the things Tennessee are doing from funding and
Mhm.
these public-private partnerships and different things, they're starting to do that. Again, Florida's kind of been leading the way in some of that here in the Southeast. They in Georgia and Texas, I believe. So when I heard Florida's guy say, we're doing it, we've already passed a law, and yeah, by the way, it took us a couple of years working on this for stamping 3D models, you know, my antenna went up a little bit. So anyway, I think it's something we ought to try to address and start talking about now rather than later.
Yeah, I'm glad they went before us, because since they've mapped some that they're also going to learn in the next 2 or 3 years too, so we can take their best practices and sort of sidestep those holes if there are any on the way. So I'll reach out to our counterpart.
Do they actually have legislation in place about that?
I think he said they did.
Can we get a copy of? Can you reach out to the member board and administrator and get a copy of whatever they did?
Be good to see what they passed,
Mm-hmm.
and also if there's somebody smart down there that would be.
We're all in sync per usual. I wrote that down. I was going to reach out to our counterpart over there. So as soon as you said Florida was passed, I was like, well, they mapped it, so we'll start there and
Good.
kind of get a thread growing at least, and we'll have that discussion with them. And if there's any hiccups on the way, then we'll reconvene and carry forward.
Thank you for reading our mind. Stop doing that right now.
It looks like we're ready for, we have on the agenda the artificial intelligence and engineering. However, on the notes, Mr. Carter, I'll let you sort of continue your discussion, declining numbers, ethics, and then we can circle back and get our artificial intelligence then.
Yeah, so you can see numbers that were presented as far as the number of exam takers is going down, as well as the pass rate going down, which is obviously concerning, because at the same time we're also saying that there's pressure work out there that needs to be done and don't have enough people to do it. And so, as far as what this board can do, I don't know the answer to that other than keep having discussions with NCES in regards to the exam and making it more.
I think, when you first mentioned this, I was scratching my head because I was like, I've heard this somewhere else before, in other industries. And it just hit me, like we were talking about this when we were talking about potential fee reductions. There was several prongs. And one of those was the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. They were reporting a plummeting enrollment to four-year institutions. And of course, that affects engineering as well. It's not, isolated to just engineering. But I suspect some of that's probably trickling or flowing out of that, that dynamic. What that is, we'll leave that to, I guess, the organizational psychologist. But, I don't know what's happening there, but we've been watching that, trying to keep an eye on that. So that's
I
good
think one
information.
of the bigger concerns that we sort of talked about is, I think it's extraordinarily bad that because of the methodology that's used in the exam, or the I guess the development of the questions that are used in the exam are generally prepared by individuals in academia that have not practiced engineering. It used to be a practice exam. You had to have practiced engineering and you had to have completed designs in order to be able to know how to address the questions. And the pass rate was, I think, better then. Now it's become an academic exam prepared by people in academia, and I think it's disgraceful that it's become so difficult and so challenging that only 50% of the people that take the exam can pass it. That's a problem. And I think that needs to be addressed, and we've tried to do that before, and the people on the exam committee don't want to talk about it, don't want to entertain it. They feel like they've got mechanisms in place that dispose of exam questions where nobody gets it right, and that's not addressing the issue. The issue is it's an academic exam, not a practice exam. It needs to become more of a practice exam. So we'll have an opportunity, I guess, in Boston to voice that opinion again, and I feel like we'll probably meet with the same response again. But we have an obligation and a duty to continue to voice that concern.
I'm interested in what their response was. I suspect, though, that if it continues in the trajectory it's going, that they themselves it's gotten their attention. So I suspect that there's going to be some, response. I can't imagine that they would allow it to continue in the direction it's going.
Their response, they raised the fee. Of course, the fee was lowered artificially 2 years ago. They've raised the fee for the test, which, I mean, again, it was $50, $25. I can't remember what it was. because the numbers are down. You're right, Alton. Part of that is an academic thing, but the other thing that has some hope is with some of the new methodologies they're using for administering the test. It's got some graphic things in it that make you go through. It allows you to go through more of an engineering process, but still the pass rate is 3 to 5 years is still the sweet spot, which indicates that those people that have a better chance of passing it are going through some sort of design rigor to get there, practice rigor to get there. Otherwise, the pass rate would be 80% coming straight, within a first year or something. So, but you're right. Sometimes the questions are they don't build on themselves. They're very discrete and academic.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to know what the impact of decoupling has been because it's so new to so many states. There's only 21, now 22 states that have it, and all of that's been done in recent years. So I'm not sure that's a good enough sample size to determine whether or not kids that are coming right out of school, if it is an academic exam, are doing better. It will take a few years to garner all that information, I think, but that's a good question to ask.
I think some of the data, though, they presented early on was from some states that had it for a while. So, I mean, again, we can argue about sample size. I understand that. So, I don't know.
About the PE.
Sir?
Because the FE isn't a.
It should be. Yeah,
it's
it's specifically intended to be an academic exam, and that's why should the PE be an academic exam? It should be a practice exam. Yeah.
The decline in enrollment definitely is impacting the FE. Plus, there are places that won't require you to take the PE or be a PE. So sometimes the workplace will dictate that, and then that's the wrong approach because that means that place is gonna own you. You cannot go anywhere else because you haven't had.
Correct. And if the economy turns bad and those people are no longer employed, believe me, when during the last recession, we were getting dozens of applications every week from people who had lost their jobs but did not have a PE.
Either decline in enrollment, that's the most serious issue here because if you don't have enough FE takers, you're not going to have enough PE takers later on.
It's great discussion. There's so many factors to watch in there, and just to throw some more debris in the storm, I was thinking there's also it appears too that there's it appears that with those that are taking the exam as well. To your point, you mentioned something to the effect of watching that decoupling and then tracking some of that. But I think I was going to add one more point, but it escaped me. My mind just a second, it just went blank. But it does seem like there's several factors here that we're going to be able to monitor.
It was telepathy.
I think that's what it was, but it sounds like that there's several factors here to track together collectively. So we'll have more information. I think that was sort of the gist of what I'm hearing from the board or from the committee, that it's sort of a wait and see really at this point. There's so much that's floating out there right now.
Jason, you got the pass rates here for the civils. I was wondering if you had similar information for mechanical and electrical. It may have been.
I know they're lower.
Really?
Yeah, civil's the highest. I think. Did you take notes on? I didn't write.
This information was in the documents that was by me.
Study material. That's what I was going to say. Preparation. You have some folks that just aren't great test takers and they need that extra prep. So that was the piece that I was that I've also seen from some of our test takers. They're looking for some of those things to sort of calm them down and help them navigate the test itself. They may have the institutional knowledge, the practice knowledge, the experience, but then there's just not a whole lot of material out there that's not directly through NCAAS or their vendors. So that was the other piece too that I wanted to throw up in there.
Glenn, thanks for bringing that up because I think that is a weakness on the PE. There have been times in the past, and it's kind of a hit or miss, where different groups would have refresher classes and would have, you could go for 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it was, and people would teach parts of the test to be able to pass it, and you'd be in there with 10 other people that were taking it. And I think in Tennessee, and not just in Tennessee, in other places, that's a real weakness. We don't have a consistent way for those folks to get together that want to get together to study for that test and to understand it and to kind of get a methodology together and all that kind of stuff. Passing the test is not, it's all about preparation. It's not an intelligence thing, thank God. I never passed it, but it's not about, but it's about being prepared. It's about understanding how to take the test, understanding what's there. And if you just kind of try to do that on your own, it's tough. I've got 3 or 4 people in my office, and they're getting together on Monday afternoon and going through it together. And I suspect they'll do very well because they're kind of getting themselves a way to go do that. So, but we don't have that here in Tennessee, have not had it in a while. And maybe we as a board need to kind of think about how we can not do that, but provide an atmosphere the environment to make that happen. So
that might even be some good conversation when you're reaching out to the deans at their respective universities, talking about the recognition ceremonies and the cords. Just ask them, hey, how are your students preparing for these exams? That might be very telling. Give it, that might be some really good research to bring back to see what the landscape looks like, because they'll know. Yeah, good discussion.
I will tell you the ones that I talked to, well, particularly Martin, I mean, you have to pass the FE before you can get your graduation certificate. So that's pretty significant incentive. But with most of the others, they teach FE classes. Some of them are not for credit, but they're all, well, in fact, you see, I mean, almost everybody, we ask them, if you want to receive the grants to colleges, one of the things our preference is that you at least are demonstrating you're preparing the kids for their exam. And almost every college of engineering is doing something to do that.
I learned some best practices then. That'd be helpful, to share across. Yeah. Is there any more discussion on the on that piece? If not, ethics among licensees.
So I believe NCES, their model law, they are incorporating ethics. You have to have so many hours of continuing education, specifically in ethics, as part of your continuing education credits. And I talked about it a little. Some of the states that have already put that in their rules have developed like online classes, webinars, whatever the case may be. So I don't know if that's something we may want to start looking into.
Florida has required that for
they have, yep.
Yes.
20 years.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Now become part of the model law. So, or becoming part of the model law along with continuing education that, just like you have to have health, safety, and welfare hours, now you also have to have. And the debate is whether I think it's coming up at this next meeting. It's, whether you do it on a biannual basis or renewal period or every year, or what's the time frame to do that. So we need to be kind of prepared about talking about the things that's coming up.
Yeah, as you know, a lot of that's articulated directly into statute with the health and safety and welfare requirements. Architects, they went full bore and decided to do the whole bag of all HSW. But and then that's the sort of and that's separated out with interior designers and engineers, some variation of that as well. But so if that was something that the the board would support, again, it might be something we watch, but would probably require a statute. And I'd say probably pretty certain it would require. Is that the case, Stuart? Yeah, it would. So, and that obviously would that be outside of our wheelhouse, but we need to at least know how to articulate our position when the legislators will reach out to us. Certainly. So something to think about.
I agree, but I think we also, once we get back from Boston, I think you all are going, right? So that if that's a model law, we don't have to adopt it, but we do need to continue the discussion to see if it's something that we want to adopt, and if we need to adopt it, then again, since the engineering committee kind of stands alone, or engineers have their own thing, it may be something that we need to add to discuss and make sure what that looks like.
You would just want to limit it to model law. You wouldn't want to expand it.
No, I'm saying that's what, if it passes, it will be
okay.
in the model
Gotcha.
law. We don't have to adopt that. We adopted changes to continuing education 2 or 3 years ago, about carryover hours and some other things. And so this would be something else we would need to discuss and see if that was what we're going to add. But to Rob and some others' points, other states have done it for a while, but they also have their own state-specific tests that somebody has to administer. Somebody has to. So if we require it, we have to figure out a mechanism to make it valid.
They're all the same.
Okay,
I
I've
mean,
never.
they're six or more had a 1 hour test, 10 or 12 questions, and they're all the same.
Okay, I'll be as big.
But even if and I'm not sure we'd have to even go to that level if we already acknowledge as part of the continuing education that engineering ethics is an eligible item I think it's under even HSW. So, I mean, what we may want to do is do something to encourage that. I think even at one time, I thought on our website we had the Engineering Code of Ethics as an attachment to that. But I've looked, I can't find it. We may even want to consider adding that. I don't know what kind of hoops you have to jump through to get that done, but it's sort of. I would think it would be kind of important that we had that on there.
It's in the rules, but you'd have to mine that out. We could extrapolate that and put that in a link, so folks can find that more readily available. But
I think we did the same thing for QBS because it was very important, and it'd be nice to have something like that available to demonstrate the importance, or at least what an issue that is for us. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of folks, it's that, ounce of prevention versus pound to cure. A lot of folks are thinking about ethics. There's a 1 hour ethics requirement with several other boards as well. So, a lot of folks are having that discussion. But yeah, we can extrapolate that part of the rules and just link it direct. That's not a problem. Yeah.
Good, and thank you.
All right. Formal recognition ceremonies. I know you wanted to touch on that a little bit. We sort of touched the outlier of that with the chords, but did you have any additional thoughts as far as that goes?
Casey's not here unless she's joining by phone, I guess, but we've been doing that. I was telling Jason and the team that I know at least in Middle Tennessee, and I think Casey travels around to other TSPE meetings throughout the state, and she had been getting certificates, and then all of the new PEs were invited. I think they get a free lunch, and they come up, and what we had traditionally done is call them all up by name and ask them to tell where'd you graduate from, who are you working with now, and give that recognition at the TSPE meetings. I think that's a good venue for doing that. Plus, I think from Casey's perspective, it may promote new members of TSPE.
Well, I was thinking when the universities themselves deliver their chords, they always have their own separate ceremony, within their own their colleges. Typically, their deans will do that. Board member present at those would be, and if not in their stead, then of course, should they not be available, I can stand in their stead should that be necessary as well. But that's an option.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Be something to discuss on that call again, preparation for those exams and then presentation of their chords should they decide to go that route. Any other discussion on that front? Okay, looks like we're ready for artificial intelligence. Hopefully this won't be too scary.
I'll start it since I don't know anything about it, but
That's a good That's a good way to start.
there you go. You know, but our responsible charge says that mere review of your work does not constitute responsible charge. Okay. Artificial intelligence has the ability to do a lot of different things, and we don't need to put a lot of time and effort into this now, I don't think. But I do think it's something that we ought to try to see what other engineering firms are doing, what experts in the field are doing, how they are monitoring that, how they are reconciling what is responsible charge versus what is artificial intelligence, and how far we allow that line to be drawn between responsible charge and artificial intelligence. And we've all seen the news reports where somebody can go in and get a term paper basically written with artificial intelligence, right? Well, if you have an engineering set of plans that can be produced by artificial intelligence, and all the person has to do is make sure the titles are right and it looks good, does that constitute responsible charge? Or, again, we need to kind of, because we're getting to get into a world where we all kind of use it right now a little bit. There's some automated features in a lot of the software that kind of give you a starting point, if you will, or a rough idea of what's going on. And we all kind of use that now. But that's not a finished product. We are rapidly moving, I'm afraid, to the point where you put in, if you're like doing a roadway, okay, your maximum, we've got all these typical sections for roadways. They're already there. We've got all these constraints against what the grade can be, what the cross slopes can be, what the transition and super elevation can be. It's very easy to say, stay away from all the houses and have those already mapped out on a plan, and then just say, go. And we're not far from that, but that's not engineering. It shouldn't be engineering. Maybe, again, it gets you a place to start from, but where's that line at? Because we're going to have, at some point, we're going to have to attack that. And I don't know that we'll ever get the answer to the committee. But we at least need to be aware of where things are happening in our industry before it gets so far down that we just have to kind of throw our hands up and say, well, it's too far. You know, what's the old saying? The horse is already out of the barn, right? So, and it may already be, I don't know, but it doesn't meet our definition of responsible charge if you can just punch a button and look at a set of plans and go, yeah, it looks about right, and go on with it. So I just think that we need to marshal some resources, and I don't know what those are, just to start talking about it, because it can be a big, big, big deal. And we can have every engineer in the state can be in violation of our responsible charge. I'll shut that back. That's all I know. Like zero. That's all I know.
I think everybody's trying to adapt to new technology. I mean, BlackBerry didn't back in 2007, and we saw what happened there. But it is a ride. And I do think, to your point, a lot of industries are grappling with that right now. So even if it wasn't just engineering specific, just tracking those developments across the spectrum would be helpful, because then you could, as the experts, make those applications like you just articulated. So it sounds like to me that's probably something that we need to keep our eye on.
I think it's something that we've gone back a little bit, but I think that's one of the reasons that this engineering committee needs to meet regularly, is because and have resources out there to discuss these things because they're coming to hit us, and we can't just say we'll get it when it gets here, because that's one that's here. And if we don't talk about those and start figuring out what our approaches are going to be, then we won't make it. That's my fear, is that not been ready. But anyway, I said I'd shut up, so I'm gonna shut up.
I've done a little bit of looking into what the projections are for when that kind of stuff might be happening, and some of the research that's out there right now says that within 3 to 5 years we could be in this situation where it is impacting kind of one level of artificial intelligence now, which is kind of the chatbot type deal that a lot of the planners are using for things like developing environmental assessments and impact studies, where they give basic information out and it goes and develops a draft report, so to speak, and then a senior level person comes in and reviews that and reads it and makes it say what it's say. It's scary from a couple of standpoints: is how well is that person actually reviewing that, or are they in responsible charge of what is being prepared? But secondly, it's also taking out training opportunities and learning opportunities for younger staff who would be preparing those things to start with. So, like Robert said, I think this is going to be upon us quickly, much faster than we might expect, and it's something we really need to be digging into.
And that's another reason I'm really grateful for the interest in attending these meetings. Obviously, NCAAS, it's on their radar as well, and so the fact that we have folks that are willing to regularly attend these and dive in those resources, and them also, I mean, because they're going to be impacted as well. So I'm glad that we have some partners, so we're not just sort of trying to start from scratch here. So yeah, hopefully some good stuff will come out of Boston, and we'll get an update after that as well.
Point now, find that with lack of engineering, shortening time for doing things, and I think to Robert's point, the horse are already out of the barn. We use a lot of optimization software to some extent.
What it's worth, I think it's like the cell phone. There are going to be a lot of really good things about it and a lot of really bad things about it. Not the only. They're using this medical diagnosis stuff is much better than a doctor because of bias and other things like that, properly used. So, there's.
That's the definition, properly used.
Well, yeah, and I still come down to whatever tool somebody uses to design something, there's still somebody's neck is on line. Of it, and I do ductwork all day long.
But at some point, Rob, I agree 100%. It's a tool based. It's how you use the tool, but it's also our generation understands what that looks like. You understand if the ductwork, it's all of a sudden sized this big and it should be this big. We understand on the roadside, my God, that's a 400-foot cut. There's no way you ought to have that, right? But what about the next group that all they know how to do is punch the button? And I think that's the part of it to me that is a little scary, is that we have to figure out where that line is between where real engineering's happening and then saying, okay, we know enough about what that out. And we've always had this issue with computer programs, but now it's like,
It's a computer to really mess it up.
yeah, but now you can make it go a lot. You can screw it up a lot faster because you don't have to hit the button every time, right? Yeah. So it's worrisome. It's worrisome. And again, maybe the right plan is to get some folks in here from industry and see how they're using it and see what safeguards they have and try to start putting our hands around it, because I don't know that NCAAS really ever talked about it that much. at the meeting. I didn't really hear them say anything about it. So
There was an article just last week from 350 IT experts that are predicting.
yeah.
Well, before there was autopilot, they had test pilots that did the quality review on it. And those are the sharpest pilots on the planet, assembled. Some of these guys in space and whatever else. So I suspect there'll always be a need for the quality review piece. Once IT builds it, you're going to need an engineer that can get out those legacy tools and test it and try to break it, But the downstream folks, kind of what we're talking about here.
So who are those? Will we have those experts that know how to go test it and break it at some point? That's the other fear. And plus, I saw Terminator 1, 2, and 3.
I need to go watch it.
Trust me.
All right, sounds good. Chair, I think
There's no new business.
Yeah, I think we are ready to adjourn. Then, if you would like to adjourn.
Everybody like
So
to
moved.
adjourn? It's done. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Call the architects and engineers meeting to order, please.
Sir, for the roll call then, Dr. Ashraf El-Sayed, Rick Thompson.
Here.
Blair Parker,
Here.
Brian Tibbs, Melanie Doss,
Here.
Robert Campbell,
Here.
Frank Waxter,
Here.
Rob Barrick, Jeff Nally, Alton Heathcote.
Absolutely tickled to death to be here.
Good to have you here. Jason Carter,
Here.
James Collins.
Here.
All right, Chair, we do have a quorum. I think we are ready to proceed. Did you have any announcements that you'd like to start with before we launch?
I don't have any announcements. Does anyone else have anything?
I did have one from Ms. Nownie.
I have a very exciting announcement regarding Susan Ballard. She is receiving her fellow with ASID in August. It will be official in August, so we congratulate her on that wonderful accomplishment, achievement, and everything. So that's great.
It's one. Hey, when you see her talk to Susan, please tell her this board congratulates her for her well-deserved accolade.
I will do that.
I do have one thing since you said that. Thank you. And actually, we'll be talking a little bit more about this. Brian Tibbs received his FAIA as well, and so only the statistic is, and I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder. Actually, 3% of the profession, only 3% of the architects ever achieved that FAIA, and I'm still AIA if it tells you anything. So, thank you.
Tibbs on, crossing that line. Maybe we can get him to campaign for it. Let's campaign going.
Thank you. It'll need to be robust.
All right. Thank you very much. Also, I just wanted to pivot over right quick and just to introduce a few of our staff. You've met some of our folks already. You've met Tammy. She's, of course, with Architects. And, those of you that send her applications know her well. Of course, Megan, she's a familiar face. You've seen Megan. She's been helping with some of our technical support. She's been with the board for a while, but she's helping Alexandria, or affectionately known as Alex as well, Griffey. And she's going to be our sort of our admin person taking over that function. So, travel and some of that, you'll see her a lot more at these board meetings. So just wanted to make that introduction as well. And thank you for your support as well. All right, I think we're ready then for the agenda. You have that in front of you. Any edits?
Credits. Motion for get a motion for approval for the minutes.
Or, excuse me, the agenda. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Got ahead of myself again.
You have a motion for the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The same. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, now we're ready for the minutes. I know you're excited about those minutes. We're going to get on that, right?
I read those while the engineering meeting was occurring. Yeah, so I think I like those minutes. So.
All right, good deal. All right, any edits to the April minutes?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Ayes carried. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready for professional society reports. And Chair, you mentioned Miss Cates, so I'll let her finish kind of what you started there. Miss Ashley Cates, are you on the line?
Good morning. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashley Cates. I'm Executive Vice President of AIA Tennessee. I'm sorry I can't be there today with you, but online will work. I have just a little bit of information for you. We are, over the course of the past year, we've been working with the State Fire Marshal's Office on IBC codes updates. And so we have stakeholders participating in a group, in a conversation to have those updated to 2021 codes. So we've been informing membership, and we will work with the State Fire Marshal and to continue those conversations and updates of when an implementation may occur. Additionally, there was some legislation passed this past year for school safety upgrades. I'm sure you have all heard about it, and so we've had some inquiries regarding some of the materials regarding the barrier-resistant film versus laminated glass. So we're working with the State Fire Marshal's office on that for clarification. The law goes into effect July 1st, and so we're trying to get a little bit of guidance for our designers on that as well. So we're working with the Office of the State Architect and plan to reach out to the Department of Education. So we've got that going. Also, Tennessee Higher Education Commission developed a manual for K through 12, with kind of safe school design best practices. And this was just released, this June. And so we're taking a look at that, and I'm going to be working with Paul Marshall to provide some information to our membership so they are aware of this resource and be able to take advantage of the resource. Moving on, the Historic Development Grant, it was funded again this year in the budget, and so we're excited about that. Letters of intent are currently being accepted, I believe through June 23rd, and you have to submit a letter of intent in order to apply for the application. So last year, there were 33 grants given across the state in multiple locations from rural areas to the urban areas. And so we're excited about that, bringing economic development and revitalizing some of the downtowns and historic buildings that can really be a catalyst for change in the urban and the rural communities.
Hey, Ashley.
Yes, sir.
Just real quickly, you said 33 were awarded. Do you know how many applicants were there?
I don't know that, but that's a good question. And is that Alton? Is that you?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay.
You couldn't tell my
Alton, I will
fancy
find that
accent.
out. Well, I can't talk about accents. Mine's as thick as thieves. So I'll check on that, and I can follow up at the next board meeting on how many applicants from last year, and get back with you all on that for the next board meeting. There's a limited number of funding, right? They gave $10 million last year in the budget for the grant program, and they awarded $10 million again this year for the grant program. So we're excited about that opportunity for the areas. Moving on our emerging professionals, we're recognizing all our newly licensed architects. I'm sorry, somebody's walking by me talking on the phone. My apologies. Just, I don't know if you all can hear it. We're recognizing newly licensed architects at our conference in August 2nd through the 3rd in Memphis, and those are the ones that were initially licensed in Tennessee. We have about almost 50 individuals, and we give them complimentary registration and an award at the conference. And so we're looking forward to recognizing them, and then we do a fun video as well. I might try to show it at the October meeting. It's just something, it's really a favorite part of the conference and the awards now. I believe Glenn was there maybe last year and was able to see it. Moving on the newly licensed architects and supporting our emerging professionals, we have started an online study group, a statewide online study group for individuals to come across together to the state that are working and pursuing their licensure and taking their tests. We have also established, we're doing a Juneteenth trivia challenge to bring awareness to the design community on the history of Africatown, which is an Alabama design competition, as well as the history of architecture in the Black community. And in that Juneteenth challenge, we have, we've in the past couple of years, we've started a fund to support our associate AIAs, our minorities that are pursuing licensure. And so that has been named the McKissick Memorial Endowment. And if you don't know about the McKissick brothers, they are the first African-American architects licensed in Tennessee and across the Southeast. And so a lot of the buildings across our state, specifically in TSU area and in Nashville, were designed by the McKissick brothers. So they actually, their family, I'm from Pulaski, and their family actually came from Pulaski, and they were apprentices and builders under someone, and then received their license when I believe everyone was required to start, I think in 1922, I believe. Anyway, so we are giving out funds for to assist our minority members in pursuing their licensure, to open up the pipeline for the profession. As far as our local chapters, they are in high gear. Summer camps are happening. AIA Memphis works with the Downtown Memphis Commission, and they are doing a hip hop camp, and they have a really great office that they've opened up off of Bill Street Landing, and it's called the Civ, and we're excited to have a Say It Loud preview party in the office space in August. And so the other local organizations, AIA Chattanooga, also sponsor students to go to the UT Architecture Camp, and AIA East Tennessee is also sponsoring some students to go to the UT Architecture Camp. I believe, thank you for hanging with me while there was a lot of noise in the background. The last but definitely not least, and the reason Brian Tibbs is not at the licensing board meeting today is because he is at AIA National Conference, and he is being recognized as a fellow, an FAIA, and we are all so excited about the recognition for Brian's achievements. Only 3% of members within the AIA are recognized, and it's the highest membership level that you can get within AIA. And so I'd like to acknowledge him, and then, in August, if he's there, then please tell him congratulations. We're super excited to have him as part of the fellows. He's the only one selected this year from Tennessee. I believe that is it. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, hearing none, then thank you, Ashley. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready then for Miss Casey Anderson.
Okay. Greetings from my car. I'll try to be really quick because I know y'all have a lot going on and you want to get out of there before fanfare kicks in too hard. We had a really great TDOT ACEC partnering conference last month. It's the second year in a row that we've done that. We had about 650 people attend. It was 3 days in Murfreesboro, and we are making plans to do that again next year, probably moving back to June. So it was a really great time. We had about 250 or so TDOT employees. The rest were consulting engineers. So it was really solidifying that partnership well. Saturday to Wednesday of this week is the ACC National Legislative Summit. Just want to give you all a heads up on what we're doing. It's 4 days of lots of meetings and speakers and such, and then we do 2 days of congressional visits on the tail end. But just to give you a heads up on the things that we're working on, specifically with our congressional delegation, is the R&D amortization repeal for those R&D tax credits, the implementation of IIJA, workforce development, and permitting modernization. So important issues that are really affecting engineers and firms across the state. We also will have the National Engineering Excellence Awards next Tuesday. We have got 6, I believe, projects from Tennessee receiving national recognition awards. So we're really excited about that, and we've got a lot of Tennessee folks heading up for that. So that I think that's going to be a lot of fun. In other news, I've been traveling the state and meeting our members across the state in support of the governor's rollout of the Transportation Modernization Act. As y'all are aware, there was a $3.3 billion influx of funding for specifically for transportation, for road funding, and changes some of adds alternative delivery, some choice lanes, lots of other things that you've heard me talk about a million times if you're on any of those lists. But really excited about that rollout. In the last week, I've been to Clark Range, Memphis, Jackson, and Donaldson. And so we'll be heading to East Tennessee soon with the governor to do some of those. So that's been a really fun process. Lots of road trips in our future. And the other thing coming out of session that's particularly important to this group is that we are trying to make people aware of the change, the addition of Public Chapter 376, which allows for professional engineers to do electrical inspections if the county legislative body allows for it, passes a resolution allowing that. That Public Chapter 376 became effective May 11th. Nashville particularly had already passed a resolution allowing for it. So I do have, people have asked, particularly folks from Commerce, Department of Commerce and Insurance had asked along the way how many people we thought would roll into that. I think it's going to be a really small number, but for the people that should be doing that kind of work, it's a really important piece. The last number I heard was something along the lines of 2,900 were sitting on a desk in Nashville on a waiting list. So it had really sort of halted delivery of projects. So I think that's going to make a big impact across the state. So that is now the law. But I feel like you all should know that is something that is allowed now. And then finally, we are beginning to gear up for our Tennessee Engineers Conference, again in Franklin this year, September 17th to 19th. I can't tell on the calendar that y'all have another meeting prior to that. So we're not far enough to even have looked at that agenda and what that looks like, but typically somebody from the AE board or all of you or some of you or anything you think speaks at that at the luncheon on that Tuesday, which is September the 19th, that we typically call the PE luncheon. For several years, we have needed to get permission from the board for you to be able to speak. So if that needs to be addressed in this meeting, that would be really helpful, because I know there's an engineering committee in August, but I don't know that there's a full board meeting. So I just thought I would throw it out there now just to make sure that the permissions are in place.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Barring any questions.
Thank you, Casey. And we will have a meeting on August, and so we can just pick it up then. I wrote it down.
Okay, perfect.
And so thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, thanks, everybody.
Be safe, Casey.
Thank you, sir.
I don't see Mr. Ridley in the in our audience. Are you online, Mr. Ridley? Okay, great. Well, not great, but you know what I mean. He's out of here, right? No. Okay, so I just opportunity because I know Blair isn't present, and of course Blair is going to give us an update for I-Corps after our professional societies, but we do have some from interior design that have joined us today, so I want to be sure to recognize them. And as to the desk, sorry I can't look at you, but I have to speak into this microphone here, but If you could just tell us who you're with and your name so Alex can keep up with the minutes, that'd be very helpful. I'd appreciate it.
For having us back. I am Claudia Lofton with IIDA. I'm our current VP of Advocacy until July 1st, and I'll be rolling into our president-elect role.
I am Anita Ryan, and I have both professional membership in ASID as well as IIDA, and I'm representing ASID today for the Nashville.
All right, and we want to give you guys an update this faster than catching up on years of information last time.
So we had our next, we had some advocacy meetings this past month, and our next joint advocacy committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 19th. We're going to be discussing planning our next in-person meetings for all of our memberships to discuss this importance. AIDC, the Alabama Interior Design Coalition representative, Jim Griffo, who is AIA and Emeritus IIDA, and Elite AP will be joining us on the 19th to help us to brainstorm some of the things to help do the legislation in Alabama, and has a great expanse of understanding what it means with the AIA and the interior design rules. Virtually met with some Utah designers and 2 local colleagues involving their legislation. We compared the markets and realized that they have really no legislation that's in place involving interior design. So we're setting up some calls with their local chapters for professional organizations to kind of brainstorm how we can all kind of help each other to get it a little bit more regulated. Also, the newest thing related advocacy is that Iowa has just become the most recent state to pass legislation confirming that the key role of interior designers play in the built environment. This bill does provide some permitting privileges to allow registered interior designers to actually stamp and seal certain documents and construction plans.
I'll give a little quick CIDQ update as well. Matt's not joining us today. So the Council for Interior Design Qualifications will implement a revised CEU policy that's going to go into effect April 1st of next year, 2024. This will align the CEU requirements with the annual renewal cycle with CIDQ, and the for active NCIDQ certificate holders that are licensed, certified, or registered, depending what state you're in, what legislation is there, nothing will change. But for certificate holders who are not registered with their state and or who live in an unregulated jurisdiction, they will be required to complete 5 approved health, safety, welfare focused continuing education hours every year. And then they will have to report this at the time of their annual renewal to remain active. We are continuing and will continue to visit our CETA schools and encourage membership within either organization for ASID and IIDA. CETA accredited schools currently are MTSU, Belmont, Watkins, UTC, UTK, and ETSU. And then we have an annual Inspire Tennessee trade show event coming up July 13th, where ASID and IIDA will be jointly presenting 2 CEUs to the interior designers and professionals that will be attending from across the state.
More ASID specific, we had our recent Nashville District Collaborative Industry Partner event with Brentwood and Hunter Douglas representative. So we were able to see some new applications, and especially things related to some of the new environmental laws and window coverings and things that can be applied both residentially and commercial. Both our Nashville and Knoxville districts had recent CEU events. We have several members that are sitting for the NCIDQ exam this fall, and we have coordinated some discounts to online study platform, as well as there are coordinating some in-person groups to help with that. We know that's very important. The American Society of Interior Designers is hosting their Gather 2023 from August 13th through the 15th in Los Angeles, California this year. And we have 3 members of the Tennessee board that will be attending, as well as getting training specific to their roles on the board. And then our state conference is scheduled for September 28th and 29th. And the theme is the joy of design. The Excellence in Design Awards Gala will take place on the 28th at St. L. And we actually added a student competition to our portfolio of as well this year. So it's the first time. So we've reached out to all of the students and the CETA schools and all members that are in good standing. Hopefully we'll get some participation there. We look forward to that. And then the second day, we'll have our chapter awards, the CEU and the State of Association report and keynote speech. We'll take the annual strategic planning meeting is currently scheduled for August, and we'll be setting chapter budgets and the schedule and events for the year. And then nominations for the incoming 2023-24 board are complete, and the new positions will be inducted on October 1st.
And then just a couple more IIDA specific events. We've opened up our NCIDQ prep course signups for the upcoming October testing window. June 9th through 11th this weekend. A few of us will be going up to nationals in Chicago for the summer Chapter Leadership Council planning weekend. This will be focused on communications. And then we also have coming up on June 22nd, our Threads Reveal Party. So every other year we host our statewide awards gala, and every other year it's a competitive fashion show. We team up professional members with industry members, and we put on a really fun event that is used to raise some money and a good gathering for statewide attendees. We have opened that up as of 2 years ago to students, so we have student dedicated teams now as well, which is really fun. And then our new board positions have been nominated. We are voting on those at our next board meeting, and that will transition will happen on July 1st. And that's all we've got.
You both are busy folks, so a lot of ground to cover. I was listening to the our other professional society reports too, and lot of stuff happening. I mean, a lot of miles on the car, as you see, you know, with Casey and Ashley, and then we of course got our folks from interior design as well. So a lot of good stuff happening out there. It's a very active and energized industry that we all share. So good deal. Thank you very much for coming in and providing that. We appreciate it. Okay, I think we're ready for the I-Corps update. Blair?
And I'll even turn the camera on for this. How about that? Good morning, everyone. I attended an I-Corps meeting. I-Corps stands for the Interorganizational Council on Regulation. And it was really a beneficial virtual meeting. Those that are involved would include for interior design and architecture, engineering, and landscape architecture. What I liked about it is they were well organized with their presentation. Tom Banks of CDIQ spoke, Mike Armstrong of NCARB, David Cox of NCEES, and Matt Miller with CLARB. Everybody had a different role, but the core reason for this I-Corps organization is to keep an eye on regulation and make sure that we're all we have our houses in order and that type of thing. For me, I think it's good to know potentially how other states look at different things, and this is an organization that will allow us to do that. Not that we want to be like anybody else, but if there's a trend that maybe we're thinking about, and we find out that there are 10 other states paying attention to it, then maybe that's justification for us to continue on with that. But a few of the things that were mentioned, one of the offerings by this organization is that when new board members come on board, ICOR actually offers an orientation that includes all of these 4 professions, of which, of course, our board represents. So I thought that was helpful. They're dealing with practice overlap and incidental practice, which is something that we talk about and are dealing with as well. So I think that's healthy as well. That's one of the big discussions I think that took place. There are meeting minutes of that meeting that I do not have a copy of yet. When I do, I'll send that to you. There's also virtual recording of that meeting that you may want to look as well. But the reason I bring this to you is I really believe this is something that we at Tennessee A&E Board that we should participate in and be a part of. And so I'll certainly be glad to continue on with it, but I think that the other professions may want to look and see how it does for each of our respective professions. So I just want to report on that. It was a really good meeting. Each of the folks that spoke, they were organized, and it was a 25-minute meeting. It was really good, but packed full of information. So that's all I got.
All right. Thank you so much, Blair. Appreciate that update. I typically get a lot of those meeting requests as well, but so if there's other interest on the board for folks that want to hop on there, typically I'll try to log in, and they're really good, the ICOR, but also each of the individual associations about recording their meetings. I really appreciate that because we all live such busy lives that with the scheduling conflicts we have, sometimes we can't log in and get it live. But to be able to go back, as Blair mentioned, and look at that and follow along with the agenda, that's helpful. But so if you're not getting those meeting invites and want them, either Blair or I can send those to you. Thank you, Blair. All right. Unless there's anything more on that front, I think we're ready for the director's report. This is real brief today. All I've got on my item is the budget report, informational purposes only. No action required on that front. Our last meeting, we had reporting through January of this fiscal year, so we'll only be looking at the last 3 months of record, which would be February, March, and April. If you look at February, March, and April, we have one big expenditure, but of course you know what that is. That comes every single February when we cut those contracts. So for the grants. So that's what that is. That's a $400,000 sort of expenditure, and that's pretty common. That'll be every February, unless that timeline changes that would require the process to change. But the process as it is, you'll see that expenditure every February.
Hey, Glenn, we did fully expend the full $400,000, right?
We did. I think accounting, we were squabbling over $1, but it was if not 400,000, it was like $399,999. So it was we spent the money. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
thank you.
I didn't see anything that popped out. I mean, typically I'll highlight those items and that sort of stand out year end over end. That is some variance from what we've seen before, and then I'll look at those expense that basically the ledger, but there wasn't anything in there. I've got the ledger with me for at least 1 month, so we could talk about any of that if you like. But we're trending in surplus, adding right now so far each month. So we're just watching that, and we had that discussion regarding fee reductions a couple weeks ago, and why we're not diving into that yet, because we still have to look at some of those trends. Some of that we talked about in the engineer committee meeting, and Mr. Barrick will give us a summary of that near the end. But the enrollment numbers with some of the institutions and a lot of other factors. But right now we're watching that, and hopefully as that data continues to pour in, then be able to make an informed decision about what we need to do should we continue in that trajectory. Other than that, I had nothing else to add in regards to the budget. I believe then, unless there's any questions as regards to that, I think we're ready for the legal section.
Okay, number one, 2023-008-591. Complainant filed an insurance claim with his insurer for reported damage to the structure of his residence caused by water pipe leaks that occurred on or about December 21st, 2022. On January 27, 2023, respondent's employer was retained by the insurance company and requested to determine the extent of damage as a result of the reported pipe leaks and to provide general repair recommendations to restore the residence to its condition prior to the pipe leaks. Complainant alleges respondent was not the responsible charge of the office and was not allowed to place a seal on a report of findings because it was reviewed by another registrant. Complainant further alleges that respondent cannot act as responsible charge with his employer because he is also responsible charge of his own firm that bears his name. Respondent states he made the site visit and prepared the report wholly by himself. Respondent did have another engineer review the report, but it was stamped and sealed by respondent. Respondent further states that he had a sole proprietorship and closed his office before joining the firm he is currently works for several years ago. Further, the complainant does not raise any issues regarding the report, and the report prepared by the respondent demonstrated competence, knowledge, and thoroughness in their evaluation and recommendations. This was reviewed by board member Alton Heathcote, and the recommendation is to close.
Move to accept the recommendation.
A motion to accept in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, number two, 2023-01-2461. Respondent was sent an audit letter to produce the required annual PDH on 12/21/22. When respondent renewed the license in August of 22, he affirmed that he had completed the required PDH. After receiving the audit letter, respondent admits to falling behind on the PDH, however, states that he became distracted in the completion due to selling his business, contracting COVID, and the office in which the PDH files were located was involved in a fire, which all files were destroyed. Respondent did submit additional PDH and have been completed after receiving the audit letter. These PDH satisfy the audit. It's reviewed by board member Frank Waxter. Some mitigating factors of selling the business, COVID, and the fire. Recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $500 for not completing the required PDH and taking past the laws and rules exam.
We have a recommendation. Can we get a motion to accept that recommendation?
So move.
Motion. Can we get a second?
I'll second, and then I've got a question.
Please do. Go ahead.
On the architect renewal form, I assume they certify that they have met the PDHs. Okay. And we see these every once in a while, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with anything, your recommendation, Frank. It's just we have this more frequently than not, and people just kind of gloss over that they are certifying when they sign that they have done the work. And I won't say it goes to character, but it goes to something. It's sloppy. And every time I get ready to sign one of those, I go back and go, "Oh crap, I'm getting ready to sign this," and I go back and look at my PDHs and pull them up, and I don't know if it's like I said, I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but I just wonder where that line is and where people kind of think you've basically lied, and that's troublesome. We see this more frequently than I would think, but whatever.
Anyway, we follow the Arkansas model when you have to log in your there, so it takes out the slop.
I think I'll let Glenn speak to that, but that's something we'd have to administer and keep up with. And
Yeah, there's several approaches. We go to the audits just because there's, especially with some of our boards, administratively, it's more efficient, and plus, honestly, because of the audit, it also gives you're able to catch some of those folks that would commit that crime of opportunity as well that you would never know about. So I don't know it's necessarily a terrible thing. I remember I went to the police academy once, and the instructor told us that he's they're absolving no more leave throughout the week, because people get themselves in trouble. And I was thinking, they get themselves in trouble, fine. We don't need them on the street as police officers. I think it's good that we are able to spot some of these folks, that present themselves in that way. Now, that's a philosophical argument, not one that I'm necessarily prepared to have, but nonetheless, I do think, though, just administratively, my wheelhouse, that lane that I stay in, I look at that and I say, there is a trade-off. Will there be some that'll sort of take advantage and maybe roll the dice? Certainly, but for the sample that we pull, although we're seeing, to Mr. Campbell's point, we're seeing that, on the report, when you compare that to the sample size, it's really not as many as you would necessarily think. Most of the folks that are testing to that, when we pull, it's never showing up on the report because they've got the PDHs, they've got the receipts, and so that's a good sign. That makes me feel better, so that we know that this isn't just sort of a wide scale problem. If it turned into that percentages started getting up there a little bit more, then we'd have to look at that and rethink that, because then we might be entering into HSW sort of territory, at that point. But it's, you kind of have to thread the needle, it's a tension, between administration and also the mandate as well. And, you could do 100% audit. That's kind of what you're talking about, Dr. Ashton. There's some that, you mean just.
What I meant is, when you go and you actually log in your PDH hours, it takes out some of the sloppiness, or I forgot, or I thought I already have it. Once you log them in, you know exactly where you are. So there will be no excuses like what we see in this case.
So you're saying basically like a hybrid where they submit all their PDHs, but then we're only auditing them. You know what I mean? Still, we're still doing our audit. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I see what you're saying. We could certainly go that direction. We haven't in the past for some of our other boards, just primarily because then we run into some technical difficulties where folks, they go to enter and they struggle maybe to get those things uploaded or to describe them, and so then that generates tickets for customer service and some of the rest. And with a licensing pool of I think 16,000 engineers, that can, again, you just have to weigh all that. But that's something that we could certainly consider. That's a good idea. That's something that I haven't really, considered or thought about. But I'd have to stress test that with some of those implications administratively. I'd have to ask some of our partners. We are going to a new system, which I think people will like here pretty soon as well. Course getting a facelift. It's going to be called Reg Access here pretty soon, but it's being brought into the modern world of it's going to have an app. You're going to have your own portal, and it's going to be like Amazon, when you go and make your orders and you upgrade your account, and everything will happen inside that portal, much like you would with your doctor. When they'll upload your medical reports and your records there. But also, if they want to send you a message, they're not sending it to your email address. They send it to your portal, which sends it to your email address that you updated, just like Amazon does as well. So we don't have any more of that. Oh, well, I never got that, renewal or that notice that you were supposed to send. Well, if you didn't, then you update your account. So kind of back to you again, but also it's just, there's a lot of good functionality that we're going to be able to take advantage of, like folks being able to use their app and alerts. and a lot more other stuff coming out of that. But we're looking for that. There's smoke testing upstairs right now, so probably the end of next month, we'll see the new face of CORE here pretty soon. And for those of you that will be doing your own renewals post July, you'll see it sooner than some of the others. So more to come on that. But so to your point, Dr. Ash, full circle, there might be some more functionality there that we never had before as well.
Right.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd like to say, Ash, that may be for engineers in Mississippi. When I re-up my license, basically I have to check something saying that I meet the Tennessee requirements. That's it. But the other thing about back to the issue at hand here, this guy had so many problems. I almost wanted to say you don't have to do anything, but what it boils down to is ethics, and maybe there are people that just check the box and don't even think about it, but I really am pretty sure most anybody that when they renew their license and they check that box, they know whether or not they've got their CEUs, and so they're checking the box. They're saying they do and they don't, and so that's the reason for the fine and taking the laws and rules exam.
I agree 100% with that.
This guy had Job had less problems with that.
Yeah. Oh, I will say this too. That, a lot of the times I notice that people are waiting until the last week, and then they'll go to one of those web providers, and they'll in one day get 12 hours of PDHs. So one of the things that I started doing is you can go to those websites and they'll give you a curriculum. They'll tell you what each one of those is about. And it's surprising how the title is nowhere reflective of what the actual coursework may be. So we need to be, when we're reviewing these things, we kind of need to be careful about that and verify that it's actually germane to the practice of whatever our profession is.
Point, Sandra, she reviews those for us. That's one of her functions, and she's tough. I mean, sometimes she'll bring some stuff to me, and I'm like, "Come on, Sandra. I mean, like, let's give this engineer a break." I'm kidding, but she's really very earnest, and so that's one thing I do appreciate about all of our staff. But she takes that very seriously, and will bring some of those things that sort of she thinks maybe dancing on the line a little bit. So I only say that will something perhaps get by us. Certainly, that's a possibility. But there is an effort in that regard, and just wanted to provide some sense of confidence to the board as to how that gets made.
But one excuse me, one comment as well from the architect's perspective is that our continuing education hours are approved by AIA, and they're industry wide. So we don't have, like you guys do, someone justifying something that might or might not be to that topic. So self-reporting is very difficult. So that's one thing at least through AIA. If I self-report, it's very cumbersome and like anything that you self-report, it's very cumbersome. So. I like the idea of how we do it as architects is that we have a go-to organization that manages our hours for us, and we have their own record. If I need to renew a license or if I need to apply for a license, I can go to my AIA transcripts, pull them right up, send them on, and it's verified. So some kind of verification is it's a good responsibility to have, but I don't know about going in and loading in every hour that I've got because it's a real pain. I can tell you from being licensed in Kentucky, and they wanted everything. They wanted that. They wanted their certificates, which we don't always get certificates when we're doing online. So I want to be careful not to put too much on the licensees, but also if they're not being truthful and they get caught, well, then they should pay the penalty. So anyway, it's a interesting world of continuing education. So anyway, that's what I have. Thank you.
On case number 2, we had the vote. We just need to pass the final, aye or nay.
Yeah. All right. All in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Thank you.
Number 3, 2023007521. Complainant alleges unethical behavior against respondent because he owes complainant over $40,000 in unpaid invoices and has not been responsive. Respondent confirmed the invoices would be paid, but 2 months later the complaint was filed. There's no evidence that respondent is engaging in a business of fraudulent or dishonest nature. This was reviewed by Board Member Robert Campbell, and the recommendation is a letter of caution.
Robert, I just got one quick question. Not that it should matter, but was the complainant a sub-consultant, a professional sub-consultant?
It looked like they had supplied something to them, a service. It wasn't another sub-consultant. And we have a thing in our laws and rules that says we cannot engage in fraudulent business practices. And I asked that a letter of caution be done, not because I don't believe this guy has, but when you agree that you're going to pay somebody, and then 2 or 3 months later, and that may have actually been 3 months, Stuart, by the time we kind of got everything through, you're starting to move in that direction, right? And so I just want to let him know that as a professional engineer, that's in our rules, you can't just go say you're going to do something and you don't do it, and just let him understand that he's made it appears he's made a commitment to pay that, and I had invoices. It wasn't made up. And again, it looked like a service or some equipment or something along those lines. And so, we need to make sure that our yes is yes and our no is no. And just so that he understands.
One of the reasons I ask is because we have a couple of contracts that we work under that are pay when paid.
Agree.
And sometimes that can eke out a little further than I think they've been paid probably and haven't.
We have a few of those as well.
Yeah.
And we always, but you typically that conversation is, we're going to pay you when we get paid, not we're going to pay you in a couple months and you don't, right? I mean, so that's kind of where that line is for me.
So this is my question is the respondent confirmed the invoices would be paid, but 2 months later the complaint was filed. So, I mean, did he agree to pay immediately, or it's kind of like we'll be through by Christmas? Which Christmas?
And that's why that's why I wanted to let her caution. There was nothing there. I mean, I don't want us to be investigating people owing people money or anything. But again, your yes is yes and your no is no. When you say I'm going to do something in a couple months, and he never disagreed with that statement. He never came back and said, I never said that, whatever. So, it's just like, buddy, you've had 2 or 3 months. You should at least pay something. He's on. To me, he was moving in that direction, and just need to be careful not to violate our code. So,
maybe more of a demonstration of unprofessional behavior.
But again, that's why I want to let her caution. It doesn't go on his permanent record. So, I just want him to understand that there's a provision in there that he needs to be careful of. But yeah, like I said, I don't want the board to get into payment disputes at all. But when you say you're going to do something and it's not disputed, then
Mr. Chairman, I move we follow the recommendation for this complaint.
We have a motion. Can I get a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Number 4, 2023012471. Respondent self-reported disciplinary action taken against his license in Wisconsin Previous letter of caution in 2021 was issued to respondent's employer for the same violation. That's reviewed by board member Jason Carter, and recommendation is a letter of caution.
We have a recommendation with letter of caution. We have a motion to approve. Can I get a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Number 5, 2023-019-491. Respondent self-reported they've been practicing on expired license after it expired on 11/29/21. Respondent has renewed the license on 4/21/23. Reviewed by board member Rob Barrick. This was self-reported. The recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $500 for practicing on an expired license and taking past the laws and rules exam.
I'll make a motion.
But a question, Rob, do we know how many, if he practicing on expired license, did he steal plans? Did he stamp any plans? Or
Yeah, I've said it again.
did he seal any plans during?
Yes.
Do we know how many?
I do not.
We don't know, but it actually works for a state agency.
Realized that his license had expired and called us.
But he works for a state agency and he had sealed plans?
I don't know if he actually sealed plans. It was more of just self-reporting that he had been on an expired license.
Okay, so we don't have, normally we do it based on the number of plans that they'd sealed, but if.
Right. No, this one, there's no evidence of plans or anything. It's just
Gotcha,
working.
okay.
That was a question I was going to ask. I wanted him to get a motion so we could talk, but, the only thing that we might, and again, I'm not disagreeing with a penalty or anything, but would he have been in a position to stamp plans? Would he have been in position, or she been in position to stamp plans? That'd be part of their job, is to stamp plans.
I can answer that, but I don't believe so. I think it's more just working as an engineer.
But
not,
they are a licensed professional and their license had expired.
Yes.
They'd allowed it to expire. Okay, so that is the violation.
Right.
Okay.
And that's typically the thing, is how many sets, like you said, how much have they done in between? But if they're not in a position to stamp, state agencies are not. That's what makes it. Just want to make sure that had not happened.
I agree. And it might be different if they had not intended to renew it and they were going to either put it in retirement or inactivity. But this respondent actually did renew, so there was a violation then. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. I just conferred with Stuart. He doesn't have anything else for legal. So I think we're ready for committee reports, and we only had one. So the engineering committee met this morning at 9 o'clock. Chairman Rob Barrick, just for your summary.
So we did meet this morning. We received a report from the NCEES zone meeting from Mr. Carter and Mr. Campbell. Of note, they're discussing rules for figuring out how to stamp three-dimensional models. Number of people taking the exam and the number of people passing the exams is continuing to decline, which is of some concern. We had a full and lively discussion regarding the use of artificial intelligence in engineering design. I'm happy to report that we solved that and we won't have to talk about it anymore. I'm only kidding. That this is not. This is something that we will continue to monitor. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. All right, Chair, it looks like we're ready for new business. And
I mean, one quick question there. Everybody's set then for Boston, right?
yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, is there any new business for the board? Being none, the meeting is adjourned.
sir. All right. Thank you.